Welcome to the Retro Lists podcast. As we try to list the best and worst of yesteryear, the language can occasionally be a bit fruity, so sensitive souls might want to cover their ears. Now, without further ado, here are the Retro List partners in time, Adam and Keith.
Hello and welcome. This is episode 2 of the Retro List podcast with me, Adam Eccles, and my partner in time, Keith A. Pearson. Hello, world.
Hello, world. Good morning. It is morning again.
It is. I know, yeah. We've got to stop this, but yeah, morning.
Yeah, I do wonder if we may have to experiment and do an evening one, but I suspect that might also encourage us to consume alcohol.
Yeah.
Whether that makes things any better or worse, I don't know. But
do one from the pub. Yeah,
that would be great. There is actually a very popular podcast featuring a former Premier League footballer that they actually record in a pub.
Yeah, right.
So a precedent has been set.
There you go. That's possible. I have the technology. Yeah.
But yes, the logistics could be troublesome. But we could be in separate pubs, I suppose. But
yeah.
There we are. So, have you had a good week?
I mean, not really, same old work. Yeah.
This is something that was mentioned on Twitter, that famous or infamous line, go, how are you? And people go, yeah, I'm fine, how are you?
Mm-hmm. I never know what to say to that, right? Because, nobody wants to hear the truth, do they, right? I'm tired, I'm old, I'm aching, and I'm sick to death of everything. No, yeah. I'm fine, thanks. Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, so it's a question that everyone asks and everyone lies to. So therefore, I would say it's utterly pointless.
Indeed,
completely and utterly pointless. We should there should be some law.
Yeah,
and particularly when people who don't know you ask, like you ring up, I don't know, British Gas or some other faceless organisation, and then you get some chirpy 20-something going, oh, hello, Mr. Pearson, how are you this morning?
Yeah. I hope this email finds you well. No, it fucking doesn't, right? It finds me pissed off.
What?
Yeah.
Have you actually had that?
Oh, I have it every day. Every day.
I hope this email finds you well. That sounds almost Dickensian. What are they emailing from? Now I'm going to show my lack of knowledge of history. When was Dickens around? 16s?
18s?
We don't know, do we? Should we just admit
At some point in the past. At some point.
Okay, well, we'll go with that. Okay, so I think it's fair. I appreciate your honesty, your candour, and so your week has been moribund.
Good word.
Thank you. Not bad for a Saturday morning.
Yeah, there you go. Well, but more interestingly, how was your week?
It started off. I went up to Wandsworth and had a few beers with a fellow authory bloke. Went to a Brewdog pub, which I've never been to before, which was good. Nice. And then at long last, 6 weeks before it's due to be released, I finally settled on a name for my 16th. A name. Like I'm naming it, a title for my 16th novel, and it's going to be called In Lieu of You.
In lieu of you,
like in lieu of you.
Nice.
Thank you.
Yes, very good.
Yeah. So cutting it a bit fine, but no, very very happy with that, and it should be an interesting one because I've not focused so much on the nostalgic elements of the time travel, which I know everyone loves, but I thought I'd try something a bit different this time. So it's more about the consequences of time travel.
Excellent. Well, I'm very much looking forward to that. And everyone should clear their diaries for when, what's it saying, August or what was?
Sometime. Let's just go sometime in August.
The summer. Yeah, okay.
The
summer release. Yeah, excellent. Good stuff. Okay.
You've forgotten what to say now, haven't you?
We can cut this out.
I don't think we should. I think we should leave this in so people realise how utterly unorganised and unscripted it is.
I'm certainly unscripted, very unorganised, and I'm maybe juggling too many things, but yeah.
I think this is where I come in and say, well, firstly, thank you so much to everyone who downloaded the first episode.
Absolutely, yes.
We thought we'd get a handful. And we actually got several hundred. which is amazing. So thank you so much to everyone who did listen, and more importantly, thank you to everyone who shared it on social media.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the great comments, all the feedback. And I think actually this is probably a good time where we talk about some of that feedback, because there's one or two that are fairly controversial.
Yeah. Indeed, right. So let's bring up the dregs of people's first singles.
Yeah, so this was going back to the last episode, and the question was, I can't remember the question. What was it? Name something about something.
It was
seminal teenage moments that Generation Z will never experience.
Yes, and
that was
buying your first single was one of those.
Okay,
yes.
So I theorised that people had a single that they actually bought, which was probably embarrassing, and then the actual single, and then the one that they would sort of make up to sort of make them sound a bit cooler. And it turns out I may have been onto something with that, because on Twitter, Stig of the Pub.
Stig of the
clearly
Pub, yes.
Yeah, we're guessing that that's not his birth name.
Never know.
Quite. And I think when I tell you what Stig put, you'll understand why anonymity is important. Because Stig, and I'm going to guess Stig is a similar age to us, so maybe late 40s, 50s, that sort of age. Yeah. He has been living a lie. He has told the world that his first single was Gary Newman's Cars.
Right, which would be a very good choice, yeah. Yeah.
Super cool song. Yeah, I think we can all agree that there's going to be some cred, some kudos for that.
Yes.
The reality, though, is that his first single was "I'm in Love with a Starship Trooper" by Sarah Brightman.
Brilliant. Well,
have you heard it? Is it ringing any bells?
Yeah. Yes, but I can't. Other than the sort of chorus, I can't think of it, right? But I mean, what's that got to be, like 70s or something?
I think it might have been 1980-ish,
right.
There or thereabouts. It had lots of very sort of synthy sound effects of lasers and the like, and the very trill tones of Sarah Brightman, who would go on to marry someone.
What's his name?
Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Lloyd Webber, yeah.
That's it. I don't think that's a song that she would consider a career highlight.
Well,
put it like that.
I mean, it's probably made her a lot of money over the years.
Well, we do know one person that bought it, don't we?
Yeah, there you go. You're right. So yeah, it's got to be. Yeah.
So Stig, who obviously remains anonymous. I mean, he could have built an entire life off this. I mean, he may have met a girl or a guy and told her that lie. And then forged a relationship, job interview. Who knows? Is the very fabric of his existence could have rested on that one single lie.
Exactly. I mean, that's the nature of our pedestrian travel through time, right? Is that unfortunately, it's not so easy to go back and change something. And if that's your life lie, then so be it, right? So be it.
I mean, there are possibly worse ones, but it's. Sarah Brightman, for fuck's sake.
Classic.
So, moving on, we also had Lisa on Twitter. And Lisa used to work in I'm assuming an office, and she brought up, this is again, seminal moments. I don't know if I would call it seminal. Maybe it was when she first started working in the office, but daisy wheel typewriters.
Oh, I didn't see this on Twitter, but yes, I remember those very, very much. Yeah. I
think they were also called golf ball.
Those are slightly different, right? So, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I remember having both of those in the houses where I've, grew up in. And, so the daisy wheel was a big circle where all the letters were, right? And on each, it was like the sort of the prongs of a bike or something, right? So
yes,
and each letter would have an uppercase, lowercase, and maybe a punctuation mark on it, and it would fly around as you typed and then impact onto the paper through an ink ribbon. Yeah, cool.
Very noisy, I guess.
Very noisy, yeah. I mean, yeah, if you're typing fast as well, that's going to sound like a sort of machine gun. Yeah, nice.
You can imagine a whole pool of people bashing away at these things.
Very loud, yeah.
Yeah, so that was Lisa's memory. Then we had Dean, who came in with his first single, Ant Music, by, I don't remember. Was it Adam and the Ants, or was it Adam on his own?
Don't know. Yeah, don't know.
But he also mentioned another moment. Again, I don't know if you would call it seminal, but having a telephone conversation, and then suddenly you would get the pips.
Yeah.
Basically a reminder to put another coin in the in the slot. A 2p, 10p, I think was about going rate at the time.
Yeah.
But if you mention to someone now under the age of, I don't know, maybe even 40, the pips, they would have no clue what you were talking about.
You're talking about an apple or something,
yeah. So thank you for that, Dean. That was another nice interesting one. Also, I think we referenced overseas listeners and the fact that we'd be lucky to get any listeners in the UK, let alone elsewhere. But I am delighted to announce we actually had a couple. Of our American cousins. Firstly, we had Gabe, and Gabe's first single. I don't know about this one. Does it classify it as embarrassing? I'll let you decide. It's "Don't Give Up on Us" by David Soul. There's a voice for radio.
I've never heard of that, I'm afraid.
You've never heard of it?
No, at all. Not ringing any bells. So, do
you ever? Do you remember the TV show? It's an American TV show, again 70s, called Starsky and Hutch.
Yeah, I do. But
they drove a red car with a white sort of chevron. I think it was a Gran Torino or something.
Right.
No, they're not ringing any bells.
No, I remember that show, but I was maybe too young to sort of, memory recall it.
How have you got to your age and managed to escape the music of David Soul? I do not know.
I don't know. No, I mean, I'll look it up afterwards. But
I would. David Soul played Hutch. Not that this is of any interest to you, but it might be to someone listening. And I think it had 3 or 4 hits. So this was a weird crossover that wasn't really known at the time. It's obviously big now. Celebrities, try their hand at everything. But back in the day, to have a TV star actually in the charts, there was quite a novelty to it, and actually we had a half decent voice, knocked out a few tunes. Silver Lady, another one.
Fair enough.
So that was Gabe's first single.
Nice.
And also a shout out to Debbie from Alabama.
Right.
Birmingham,
absolutely.
Alabama.
Birmingham,
another American, not only a female, I'm assuming, but American from Alabama. And Debbie said that we sounded charming.
Do we? Well, thank you very much. That's nice to hear.
So I think we're going to have to try. We're probably less charming this week. I don't know what we're going to do in the next episode.
No, I don't know actually. Yeah,
Caddish. Should we try Caddish?
I
don't know how
why
you sound
not?
Caddish, but we'll give that a go.
Okay.
But so thank you very much for everyone that has that interacted. All your feedback, really appreciated. And obviously, after this episode, we'll post up on the socials once we release this episode. And please feel free to sort of jump in with your thoughts, feedback, comments, observations, complaints,
yes,
and confessions. Because I think we quite like the idea of other people out there like Stig with things they want to get off their chest.
Yeah, finally, it probably makes you feel better now. So there we go.
And of course, anonymity is far from guaranteed.
Do include that £10 note and
yes,
in your submission. Thank you very much.
Excellent. So I think that nicely leads us to the crux of this week's episode.
All right. So what are we talking about this week? So technology from the past that was radical, I suppose, or revolutionary. There we go. It's better word. In its day, but is now utterly obsolete.
Yes. Now, I think we should chuck in a few caveats with this one. Firstly, obsolete is it's an interesting word, and it's open to interpretation because there will always be people who use stuff.
Yes.
Either because they're miserly or because
still sending faxes.
there are people still sending faxes. So we need to be a little bit open on some of these, and certainly some of our suggestions. I think there might be some pushback on one or two of them, but I think on the whole, what we would consider as obsolete is if you were to walk up and down an average high street in an average town in the UK. Would you be able to walk into a shop and find this thing? Right. Would you say that's a fair assessment of obsolete?
Absolutely. I do think people throw that phrase around much too freely, right? Like last year's iPhone is not obsolete, right? That's still a thing. And you can even still buy it, right? So, and even a 5-year-old iPhone or something, that's not obsolete. That's still an active product, and many, many people still have them, right? So just because there's a new version of something doesn't make the old obsolete, right? So
exactly.
Yeah. All right.
So and I thought, what would be a good kick-off point? Because when I posted this question on Twitter, I can't remember who put it up, but somebody posted a picture of the iconic Sinclair C5.
Oh, yes, classic.
Yeah. And that failed the test because although I think we can all agree that the concept was 100% iconic, and revolutionary.
Well, so just before, so does everybody know what a Sinclair C5 is? It's not a computer.
No, they shouldn't be listening to this if they
Probably
don't.
Probably not, really. Right? But it's sort of what is it? Right? It's a go-kart with pedals and an electric engine or motor, and it's sort of shoe-shaped. Low to the ground, and Clive Sinclair released this. When was it? Sometime.
You've just basically described a bumper car.
Well, basically without the added fun of bumping, right? Because if you bump that thing, it's probably game over, right? It's plastic, wasn't it?
It was. Did you know it was designed by Lotus?
Really? Wow.
Motor car fame, yeah.
Good grief.
And it did look very, very futuristic, I will say. I think stylistically, it certainly looked the part. It looks like it was built for the future in 1985, I think it came out.
Yeah. I suppose the thing with anything that looks like it's from the future, right, is if nobody wants to be seen with that thing, right? It's like Apple just released or announced a headset thing, right? But if you saw somebody walking down the road with a big headset, augmented reality thing on their head, they're a fucking idiot, right? You're not going to do that. Right? So and similarly, if you're in the late 80s, flying around London in a Sinclair C5, well, fair play. You're saving the planet, I guess, but you're probably equally being run over by a truck.
One thing I would say, though, it definitely fell into the obsolete category.
Yes.
They sold 9,000, I believe.
Really?
And and I actually went on because from my perspective, I thought, well, a real test is whether something has actually. Is there a collector market for it? Are these sort of items treasured nowadays?
Yeah, well, definitely they are. I actually know somebody who has one. I haven't seen it in person, but maybe one day, right? But Ian, hello. He has augmented it with some kind of gas-powered jet engine. And he actually has a YouTube, which we'll throw on the socials, right? It's quite insane. It's like a jet plane flying by, but it's Ian in his little C5. Brilliant.
Oh, when you mentioned this, I assumed it was some sort of cheese-related dream that you had. But no, it actually exists.
It exists, and I don't think he's the only one. I think this is a thing that people do, right? So jet-powered Sinclair C5. Just because, why not, right? Brilliant. That's
just the most British thing. I mean, it really is, isn't it? You can imagine somebody with, I mean, the C5 is nuts enough in its own, isn't it? But you can imagine some middle-aged guy sat in a pub with a mate going, do you know what I'm going to do tomorrow? I'm going to stick a jet engine in a C5. Fucking mad.
And then go and actually do it, yeah. And then, put it on YouTube. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what the top speed is. It'd be nice to get some facts on that, but
it would disintegrate. Anything over 30, you'd imagine. I mean, I think what was its top speed in its day? 15 miles an hour,
probably.
Yeah,
and you had to pedal as well as the battery, right? So yeah, I mean, it's not gonna, and you're sort of lying down in some weird sort of position, and
is it incumbent? Something along those lines, yeah. Oh, you're basically sat on your back, like you might sit on a reclining armchair, just before you're squashed by an 18-wheeler.
On the motorway. Brilliant. So Sinclair C5 is certainly iconic, revolutionary, but dead.
Not the fact you can go onto eBay and now buy one for about £500-600 tells you that they are. Yeah. I don't think that they are
no longer being manufactured.
No, I think if you looked at a rally burner BMX
right.
at the same era, I mean, a good one will set you back well over £1,000.
Really well.
And good ones are becoming increasingly difficult to find, whereas there are still a fair few C5s knocking about. I assume people buy them thinking, it's going to be worth something one day, and they take up probably a fair bit of space in the garage.
Yes.
So there's probably plenty of them out there should you decide that you want to buy one and fit a jetpack.
Why not? Go for it. Please
send us videos.
Yeah, exactly. Excellent.
So should we get down to the actual list of our 6 picks for this week's episode? This episode.
Let's do that. Okay. Your turn for number 1, I think.
Oh, shall I kick off then?
Yes, please.
Okay. So this is I've completely forgotten what it is. Yes. So once considered revolutionary, but now obsolete. And my first one is the camcorder.
Camcorders. Excellent.
Camcorders. So their heyday, I would say, they started sort of arriving in the early 80s, manufactured by the likes of JVC, Sony, Panasonic. And I think the earlier versions were you had the camera bit, and then you actually would have the recordy bit and perhaps the battery on almost like a bloody suitcase that you would have on a strap over your shoulder.
Huge things.
Massive things. And then I think they actually integrated. So you had and they would actually have full-size VHS cassettes in them and the battery pack. I mean, what the hell did they weigh?
Oh, God knows, right? But yeah, I vaguely remember we didn't have one, but I think you'd rent one for like a special, it's like somebody's birthday or something. So yeah, big. I mean, it's the size of like a professional studio camera now, but it was far from that. Yeah, but incredible stuff. I mean, a mix of digital and analog tech and all of that. Spinning of the tape around and recording, and just.
Well, if you think it was the successor to the Cine camera, and the Cine camera was around forever, and I'm sure that you couldn't record sound on a Cine. I'm sure somebody will correct me on that, but I seem to remember every piece of home tape I've ever seen, there's never been any sound on it.
Yeah, I don't think so. No. Yeah.
So And then, of course, it was an absolute ball ache, I would imagine. To watch that back, you've got to set up a projector and a white screen. And,
it's actually shooting 24 frames of photos, isn't it? It's just spinning through really quickly and a second there, and then you have to project. So it's shining a light through the presumably black and white film. And onto a screen. It's very low tech, but got the job done.
And then of course the video camera the camcorder comes along. I mean, I think it's safe to say that was revolutionary in many ways.
That you could go and rent something or buy something that you could just bring home and on its own without much hassle. Sure, you'd need strong shoulders, right? But you could you could walk around with this thing and video your 79 or 80 or birthday party. Wonderful.
Well, I think very much something for the middle classes initially. I mean, certainly for the 80s. I mean, I did check this morning, and there was a couple of models advertised by Dixon's. If you remember the retailer.
Yeah.
This was in 1987, and both of these were £1,299, £1,299, which is about $3,500 today.
Wow!
So these were not cheap.
Wow.
But I think that not only were they revolutionary in as much as people could record everything from birthdays to Christmases, holidays, all that stuff, but they probably launched an entire genre of pornography. At some point, let's just call them, say, Nigel and Sue living in suburbia. Kids are at the grandparents for the weekend. Video camera set in the corner of the room. A few glasses of Blue Nun. Picture the scene.
Blue Nun. Classic.
Nigel suggests that Sue slips into her best M&S negligee. And there are probably thousands of these videos floating around.
The camera,
and look where that's led us.
Wow.
So I think definitely camcorders, definitely 100% revolutionary, and now completely and utterly obsolete. Why would you? Unless you're a professional wedding photographer or a professional anything. We're talking about the layman. Nobody's going to be going out and buying one today, are they? Not
a huge lump of a thing like that. No. I mean, no. You can make 4K video on your phone easily. It's just there.
Unless, of course, Nigel and Sue decide they just want to relive those happy memories.
Well, that's it. I mean, and pull out.
Maybe there is a market.
The old tapes and. Put them online.
We should probably move on from that point. So I hereby commit camcorders to the retro list.
All right, excellent. Okay.
So your first pick is?
My first pick is the Walkman or Discman or both, right? Because they're both are kind of the same thing. So. So picture the scene. You're in the 80s. You've got a huge tower stereo system at home, and you've got those buttons on the front where you eject the tape and it comes out really smooth. Everyone loves those, right?
Unless you bought an Amstrad.
So you don't want the tape to flick across the room, right? It comes out nice and smooth. I used to go around Dixon's and just press all those eject buttons just to see. So you got
We've all been there.
Got your huge stack of stereo equipment in the corner, and that's great. But what use is that when you're out on the bus or in the car or something, right? So you need your Walkman. And of course, I mean, I'm not exactly sure when these became popular. I suppose it was probably much earlier than you remember, right? But
79, I think.
Really?
And I think there's probably people screaming. There's probably not, but I'm going to say, imagine people screaming at their Actually, what would they be screaming at? They're not screaming at their computers, are they? They're screaming into the abyss.
Into the void, yes.
Into the void. That, of course, the Walkman is it's a brand, the Sony Walkman, and what we're actually referring to are personal cassette players.
Players, yeah, probably, yeah, not really. But I mean, yes, that's true, right? But it's one of those. What's the word for that thing where it becomes the brand becomes the?
It becomes a generic term, like a Hoover.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, but of course, as we know, there are men of our age. We don't like to be pedantic as a rule.
Of course not.
No. So when we say Walkman, we are referring, of course, to a personal cassette player. But there you go. So that satisfied all the pedants listening.
There you go. Well, not all of them, right? Maybe. I'm sure there's somebody still like if that was released today, right? Do you think it would be called Walk Person, or not even Walk, right? Just
I'd never thought of it like that. The Walkman.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
upset the people, right?
It's suggesting that women
can't possibly listen to music, right? Obviously,
and walk at the same time.
Yeah, good grief.
I mean, the few women that we had listening have now just switched off, so that's that. It's down men only. A safe space for the chaps.
But think about how revolutionary that was. I mean, you got the
utterly.
You got the little headset band thing, which was Can
we just talk about those orange spongy things?
Yeah, I was going to say, they were orange, weren't they?
Why? Who made that call?
Well, I don't know, right? But my speculation would be that that Apple made all of their earbuds bright white of first. So they're still actually the AirPods and everything are still white, right? And it becomes. Oh, you can see somebody's got white things in their ears, right? I think it's that kind of thing, the iconography of it and the visibility and the brand awareness, right? You've got orange things on your ears, so you're cool, right?
Okay, yeah. I suppose if you're, I mean, back in the day, you would want people to know that you're walking around with especially if you had an actual Walkman. I mean, my first one wasn't. It was Matsui.
Oh yeah,
which
all those wonderful brands.
Yeah, I think it was Curry's
Special. Yeah,
it was their own brand. So I mean, Walkman was quite expensive, but I did over the entirety of the 80s. I think I evolved, and I think by the end of it, I was rocking out to an AWA or something like that.
With probably with Dolby noise reduction.
100%. Yeah. And I love that thing. I still can remember that very specific moments, listening to very specific songs in very and if I hear those songs now, I could be literally transported back.
Yeah.
Just by the and that memory of wearing this thing and the liberation, as you say, of being able to listen to anything you wanted. Wherever you wanted,
as long as you had it on a tape, yeah.
Oh yeah, and your batteries obviously didn't run out.
I mean, this still happens now, right? But I remember as a kid, maybe 15, 16, something like that, walking down the middle of a road, listening, oblivious to music, and there's a car beeping behind me, like, get out the fucking way. Like, oh shit!
It probably happens more so now than anything. I mean, those earphones, they let a lot of sound leak, didn't they? Both ways.
Yeah.
They were fairly hopeless.
The original ones.
I don't think it really mattered, did it?
No, of course not. I mean, just you got music in, and you can walk around and do whatever. And batteries become, a thing of desire, like AA batteries still are, right?
Yeah.
But you need to feed your. Feed your machine with batteries.
You were going to say feed the habit there.
There you go.
Has completely different connotations. I think, just touching briefly on the Discman, I still have one kicking around somewhere, an actual Sony Discman.
Yes.
And I've got to say, I thought it was utter wank.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 2 reasons. Firstly, it drained batteries like nothing on earth.
Yeah.
And secondly, it skipped a lot.
I was going to bring that up, right? So the first ones when they released, right? They didn't have. It was a laser scanning the disc, and yeah, if you bump that at all, it's going to jump, and you'll lose gap of music, right? But then they kind of built in like a buffer, so the laser would read ahead for a few seconds and store that in tiny bit of memory, and so if you bumped it a little bit, it would be okay, because it could just sort of pick up and keep going, right? But yeah, the first ones, no buffer, and you'd have to walking around with it. Not the same as the Walkman, is it? Because you could just sort of, you don't want to, right? Strap this thing to your belt and walk around. That's how you tell people, I do definitely not want sex because I have this thing strapped to my waist.
I think it was like the early adopters of the mobile phones. You used to have those pouches that you keep your Nokia in. I say you, I'm not implying for a second that you would keep your Nokia phone in a pouch attached to your waistband.
I don't think I ever did, but
I go back to the Discman. Yes. I think it was fairly short-lived, wasn't it? Because it was certainly.
I
you
still
can tell me
have
otherwise,
one.
Aren't you?
Well, I don't know exactly what I think it's you might even still be able to buy one. I'm not sure, right? But probably not. But specialist thing or something, right? But as I think I said last episode, I don't know if I actually have. I have a Discman somewhere. I don't think it functions anymore. I don't actually know where it is, right? But it's still maybe a niche thing. But yeah, you could still potentially play a compact disc. So
why you would, I don't know. I think I use mine in my bedroom, which sort of tells you everything, really. That what's the point of it?
Well, I do remember buying my first one, and it was a kind of big event. But yeah, I did try and mount it in my car as well at the time, but with like a big foam thing. But yeah. It's on the dash, and then I had
I can imagine that. I really can.
Cigarette lighter to power it, because it had a little power input. And
I thought you were going to say then to POW, as in the group. That was your CD of choice. Young Adam motoring along, listening to China in Your Hand. Picture that.
I did like that song, but
I did. I've seen them live, actually.
Oh,
Very
really?
good.
Really?
Sorry, we're digressing now. We got from to PAL.
But so Walkmans, Discmans, whatever you want to call them.
I think we can 100% agree that they were revolutionary. I'm gonna separate off. I'm going to say the Walkman, because I'm not convinced about the Discman. I think 100% the Walkman, revolutionary in every sense of the word, and now completely and utterly obsolete.
Yeah, and if you saw somebody wearing one now, you'd really wonder, like, have they just come from through a portal in time or something, right? And what is wrong with them? But probably
or they could just be super cool.
Maybe. Maybe.
I suppose it depends if they've got a Nokia on a belt pouch.
Yeah, if they've got the camcorder on the shoulder and a Walkman and a Nokia, and they're just
the batteries, the money you'd spend on batteries for that little combo.
Yeah.
Yes, we digress.
So Discmans, Walkmans, let's go with Walkmans. I hereby commit you to the retro list.
Excellent. So my second choice, this one's a bit of an odd one. I'm going to go with CB Radio, Citizens Band Radio, to give it its full name. And this is not something Adam and I have discussed before, so I have no clue whether he was a fan or a user of CB Radio.
No. Well,
right, good. Well, this is going to be an interesting conversation. David Soul Music and CB Radio.
I was aware of it, right? And I think I had a friend whose dad had one. And I remember maybe once or twice getting it out and using it right. But it's not a strong memory, certainly, and we never had anything like that, right? So yeah.
Well, this is going to be a very short segment. I don't know whether it was just me and my group of friends. I think it was a fairly working class type thing. I don't know if it ever leaked into the sort of middle classes, but it was massive in its day. I'm talking about probably early mid 80s. In fact, virtually the whole of the 80s. And for art, I think I got one when I was 14, 15, something like that. And to have this thing in your bedroom, which allowed you to bear in mind, I think going back to the previous episode, we weren't allowed to use the phone. There was a lock on it. So if you wanted to speak to your mates, you would have to leave the house, go and knock on their door and hope they were home. So to actually have this device which allowed you to communicate with your friends was absolutely revolutionary. I don't know. I mean, I think that they obviously came over from America and they were, used in the sort of trucking things. And there were a film called Convoy, I think it was called, and that's sort of glorified this whole sort of CB culture.
Breaker.
It didn't translate very well to. I was going to say the M25. I'm not even sure if the M25 existed then, but we'll go with the M3. Not quite the same.
You needed to have a massive aerial, though, didn't you? And
you needed an aerial, and or whip, I think, as they were known. And how this worked is you would get your whip, which was about. You could get them in all sorts of sizes. I mean, some had massive ones, others were much smaller.
There you go.
Mine was about. I'm going to say mine was average.
Fair enough.
What you did is you would drill it. You would get a biscuit tin, like a Rover biscuit tin, metal,
right,
or family circle.
Before the days of Aldi, yeah.
Yes. And you would take the lid off, and it was a square lid, and you would drill a hole in it, and then you would fix that will be with a mount. I suppose it was like to replicate the car roof, I guess. And that gave you a little bit extra boost.
Oh,
you would
really?
stick this thing up in your loft, and drape a cable down to the back of the CB. And then you had this massive, I never understood it, this massive power pack thing. I guess they were used to running off car batteries, so they were built to run off a car battery. So therefore, you had to have this sort of transformer thing,
right?
Yeah. But it was incredibly liberating. Would you have been aware then that to use a CB radio, you had to have a handle?
Yes, I was gonna mention that. So, did you have a handle?
I did, and for the first time, I don't know if I should tell people this because. This is the sort of thing that just comes back and haunts you down the line, isn't it? And it sounds so twattish now. I mean, bear in mind I was 15, so I was a twat. But now as a 50-something bloke, I don't know if I'm willing to admit this, but okay, so my CB handle was Beef Box.
Jesus Christ. Beef Box.
Beef Box.
Epic.
Fucking hell.
I was not expecting that.
Hold on. Also my porn name.
Beef Box Pearson. Excellent.
We should just caveat that. It had nothing to do with my physicality at all.
Of course not.
Not 50. It was my name was Keith. Weirdly, it still is. And I don't know, I guess my friends at the time at school, my nickname was Beef, Keith, because it rhymed with Keith. That was it. Simple as that. Like 13, 14-year-old boys' minds work. It's they just take a name and what could we do with it? We'll just find another word that rhymes with it.
Right.
Doesn't work for Adam, does it?
No. Not really,
there's nothing that rhymes with Adam. Macadam? Is that a word?
I don't think that's a word.
Anyway, we're digressing. We're getting off topic here. So yes, so Beef Keith, Beef Box. That was my handle.
Fair enough.
But the weird thing about it, which I thought, looking back on it, and this is very much again the ethos of this whole podcast, is when you look back at it and how it worked, is you would go on and you would say 10-4 for a copy.
Right.
And then you would get chatting to a random stranger.
Random stranger. That's the thing, right? It's just whoever's in range, I suppose.
Yeah.
Do you know what
exactly.
the range was? Like maybe 20, 30 miles?
I think it depended on a whole heap of factors. Obviously, the size of your whip.
Yeah,
that makes a difference. Yeah. But obviously, I lived on a council estate, so a lot of houses around. But I think I could probably get 4 or 5 miles from mine.
Okay.
But it became, the further out you went, the harder it came to sort of hold a conversation.
Yeah.
But you would meet these sort of random people, and then you would just go off into another channel. So you would look to start a conversation on channel 14. I think it was 14. Might have been 19. No, let's go 14. And then you would say, hey, 10-4 for a copy. Hi, my name's Beef Box.
And if anyone continues to talk to you after that, then fair play to them, right?
Well, precisely. There were worse ones. Literally, there were some awful ones. If you saw someone with these handles on social media, and we're not aiming this at you, stick of the pub, but if you would avoid them, or you would go, they're clearly something, somebody to be avoided, somebody whose hard drive needs checking. But back in the day, you would, it was just a thing, and you would then go off and you would go onto a different channel. And you would have a conversation, so almost like a chat room experience.
Chat rooms with voice, back in the old days. And was it just 15-year-old boys, or was there?
No. There was. It was. You would have your aim would be as a 15-year-old boy would to be meet a female,
right? Obviously,
and then have what you would call an eyeball, so a meet-up. But if you think about, people now are shit the bed over privacy, don't they? Oh, God, got to protect my cookies. And back in the day, you would go onto you would use this thing and you would talk freely to a virtual stranger about all manner of things. You could sit and listen at night, and I often did, to conversations between people you didn't know, and they would get into all sorts of stuff.
Oh, right. You could just listen and not speak. Yeah, okay.
There were only 40 channels, so there was a limited amount of chat rooms for you to go and have your conversation, and anyone could listen in, and I'm sure they did. So there was no privacy at all. And I do wonder, actually, how many actual relationships were made and indeed broken on the back of CB radio.
Yeah, it's like any communication platform, right? There's always a story about, we met on X platform and then got married, and
friends reunited.
And there you go. Or
that was the thing of its day, wasn't it? I think the owners of that sold it for a heap of money, didn't they? Many millions.
Probably, yeah. I vaguely remember that. Yeah, it was. But it wasn't before the Facebook type era, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was a newspaper article. I think it was responsible at one point for more extramarital affairs than anything else, and you can kind of see why.
Meeting your old school love, bad
reminiscing, and you realise that really you're not interested in a human being. You're interested in just rekindling those memories and those feelings of being
exactly
15, 16, which is pretty much what this podcast is about.
There you go. Nostalgia
without the sexy bits.
You never know.
So far. So CB Radio.
CB Radio.
I hereby commit to the retro list.
Excellent.
So, this is your second choice.
My second choice, right? So, how do we start? So, all through, I'm, as probably many people have already realised, a gadget nerd and a techie and all that kind of stuff, right? And so, my whole life. And all through the 80s, and maybe even further, I had pretty much every Casio calculator and databank thing that they put out.
Did you have a Sinclair calculator?
Don't think I did, actually. I really liked Casio for some reason, because that was sort of the thing of the day, right? They haven't really progressed much since then, but they
I think they made some very good digital watches. I had one that played the Yellow Rose of Texas, and I was cock of the walk in school. It wasn't mine, actually. I nicked it off my older brother.
Oh, God, right. Yeah, I had loads of Casio watches. I had the calculators, and as they sort of turned into little data bank thingies, I had all of those things as well, right? They were very primitive. You know, they would advertise like store 20 phone numbers. Great, well, tiny little, but it's the size of a credit card, maybe, or a little bit bigger. So they were pretty cool, right? So I just liked having those things, and even if I didn't know 20 people to put a phone number in, it was still cool to have, right? But those then evolved really into and it was, I looked it up this morning, right? It was 1996 when the first Palm PDA was released, right? The Palm 1000. Palm, remember those, right?
Yes.
Not to be confused with, I think it was the Scion Organizer, which was like a really clunky lump of a thing. But yeah, the Palm was, I suppose, 96 and into the early 2000s, the sort of the precursor to smartphones, right? So
didn't Apple, was it the Newton?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, there was the Apple Newton as well, and again, that was a huge and clunky thing. Might have been a bit earlier, and the tech on it was fairly crap. But black and white.
So what's the collective term for these things? They're
PDA, so personal digital assistant.
Sounds way more glamorous, doesn't it, than the reality?
Yeah,
Piece of shitty,
crunchy old black and white tech. Yeah, so the initial screens were just
LCD,
like LCD, yeah. So kind of black and white, but it was more like green, like almost the same sort of color thing as the the Nintendo Game Boy, the original Game Boys, right? Was that kind of color. So it's effectively green and dark green.
Impossible to view in sunlight.
And very, very basic. So the first one, the screen pixel resolution was 160 pixels square. So all of your stuff would have to happen in that area, right? And
wow,
the first one had 128 kilobytes of memory, right?
128 kilobytes,
which is nothing, absolutely.
Well,
when
we touched on, I mean, sorry to throw back, but it was referenced on a tweet that we were talking the ZX81, which was the very sort of almost the genesis of home computers, with its 1K.
Yes,
memory.
1K.
So I guess 128K. When did this thing come out?
Yeah, 96, 128K, 96, and of course this is in the palm of your hand. In fact, that's in the name, palm, right? So it wasn't much bigger than I suppose a smartphone these days. Much thicker, obviously. And so this little square screen, and then underneath the square screen there was this area where you would write with the little pen thing, right? A stylus. So in the middle there was like 4 touch button things on the edges, but in the middle there you would write the letters that you wanted to write into it, right? So, and they used this handwriting recognition system that they developed, right? It's called Graffiti, and it's a single stroke shorthand handwriting recognition system, and you kind of had to relearn the alphabet, right? So it's there was no keyboard, there was no tapping away at keys. Well, actually, I think you might be able to initiate a keyboard and then tap the keys with your tiny little stylus, right? But it was tiny, and that meant it taking up half the screen. So you'd be better off writing in text with this
or on an actual piece of paper.
No, who wants paper, right? So like to do an A, you'd start bottom left, go up, and then straight down again, like an inverted V. You wouldn't bother with the line across the middle, right? And the B was a bit more complicated, like a 3 with a line next to it. And obviously some letters are easy, O, D, C, I, all of that stuff, right? But you had to do them in the right way. You couldn't just start on the right and then go on the left. And
may I make an observation here?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't think I certainly had a digital organizer, one of those sort of Casio type things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I had what you had, and I am struggling to see the point. It does sound like a massive ball ache having to learn how to write again, like you've had some sort of brain injury, and.
Right, yeah. Well,
and I bet you it was ridiculously slow as well.
It was fairly slow, yeah. But I mean, rewind to where I said, right, I was a techie freak and I just loved gadgets, right? And I do think I still have a Palm thingy somewhere in the house. Again, don't know exactly where it is, and it probably doesn't boot up again anymore, right? And it's long since dead. But I just like having these things.
Are they worth any money today?
Oh, no. You'd probably find one on eBay for 20, 50 quid or something.
Okay. So that definitely falls under the term obsolete things. Yeah. If no one wants them.
No. And this was even, I suppose, I'm not sure what the era of BlackBerry was, right? But remember BlackBerry phones? They had the sort of bubbly
They
keyboard.
were huge, weren't they?
Yeah.
But they had an actual keyboard, didn't they? A proper mechanical, well, not mechanical, but a proper button keyboard with
actual buttons, yeah, but they were tiny, and trying to tap those keys wasn't exactly easy. Yeah.
But prior to that, you had the normal sort of numerical keypad, didn't you? So it was
that's
like press
right. Yes.
If you wanted the letter C, it was press 1. Is it 3 times?
So I was doing some research for a book. I won't go into that, right? But I did buy a Motorola Razr, the original, measure those, the flippy phone things. I used to have one back in the day.
Yeah. StarTAC as well, I think.
Right, it was that kind of shape. But to text on those, which you just about could, but to text on those, you had to. There was just a numerical keyboard, and you had to tap away like 3 or 4 times on each key to get the right letter, you'd get quite quick at it, right? It would become second nature,
and it did have. I think that was the sort of dawn of predictive text, wasn't it?
That's right. Well, the Nokia had the T9 or something, and you could.
That's it.
You could sort of type away quite quickly. Yeah.
So PDAs,
So I mean,
again, you don't see anyone walking around with a PDA.
No, and
or camcorder, and camcorder,
and all of these things strapped around their belt. So Casio databanks, PDAs, and I suppose an honourable mention to the Filofax, right? This is a paper thing, not really tech. But
do you have one? Did you own one?
No, it was like a yuppie thing, wasn't it? You remember yuppies? You were a yuppie, weren't you?
It was the 80s. Okay, so in 1988, which I think was peak. No, 88, 89. It was sort of getting on towards sort of peak yuppie period. Yeah. And I didn't. I had no money, so I was a young, upwardly mobile, wasn't it? I think it's
something like that. Yeah.
And I was not any of those things. I was young. That was about it. But I was but this
upwardly mobile.
I don't know what. I never really understood what that meant. But I did have a beige trench coat.
Arsehole.
Completely. I mean, you look back at the people who were described as yuppies, and you think, I don't think I suppose you could argue it's almost at the time it was probably considered a compliment, but you look back and think, no, nobody was really being nice about you. You had massive twats. With your stupid phones and your golf
Filofax
but it just goes to show though that the Filofax you can still buy things similarish. I mean, people use them for journaling and things these days.
Right.
It's still going. It's not called it might be called a Filofax. I don't know. It's a brand name, isn't it? Filofax.
Yes. I mean, there's something like moleskin or something, molly skin. I don't know how you say that, but
people like to write stuff down, and I don't think that's ever going to really change.
Well, see, my handwriting is and always has been and always will be absolutely illegible and terrible, right?
Quite, same. I'm left-handed, which is even worse.
There you go, right? So you see when you look on writing stuff, right, which we often do, you see people who think it's sort of poignant or I don't know.
Romantic.
Yeah, right. Romantic to handwrite their novels. Like, not a single fucking chance in hell that A, I would even do that, or B, anyone would ever be able to read it back. So I never. So everything as through my life, I've tried to make digital, so I can type extremely fast. And I was fairly nifty with the old stylus on the Palm PDA, but
would you go back there though? I guess that's the real measure.
No.
Would you swap? Even now, I think you used to get phones with styluses, and I think just let it go. Some of these things. No, I mean, you imagine
you're standing in line at the post office waiting, and you pull out your phone and you just want to send a text. You're not going to pull out a pen and start writing, right? You need two hands to do that, and much easier just to tap away.
I think I'm completely with you on this one. Get it on there.
All right, so I hereby commit Palm PDAs to the retro list.
Right, so my final choice, and this one is controversial, I don't deny, because I would like to put standalone sat-navs on the retro list as items of tech that were revolutionary but are now obsolete. And there is a bit of a backstory to this, let me tell you.
Right.
So I bought a very expensive TomTom in 2009-ish, We used to make that very jaunty dum when you turned it on. Right. And it was amazing. I used it quite a lot, holidays, all sorts of things. I used whenever I needed to go and see a client.
Yeah.
So it's about 2008, 2009, late noughties. Great thing. Anyway, and then 5-6 years later, I bought a car that had a built-in sat-nav, and that shoved it in a drawer. Moved home 2 years ago, and I was clearing out my drawers, and there was this thing in this box, still in its box, good condition, hadn't touched it in years.
Right.
And I think this is the true hallmark of obscurity, because I then went to sell it on Facebook Marketplace, which is it's a gamble in itself. Yeah. And I started off, but what I thought was a very reasonable 40 quid for something that cost 300.
Wow, okay.
Not a sniff. 30 quid, nothing. I ended up selling it for tenner.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So that's why it's led me to think that they are, if not obsolete, very close to becoming obsolete.
Yeah, I mean, why would you? I suppose the only reason you'd want one is if you're going somewhere where your phone isn't going to work. But then again, right, it's
you're not going to get GPS, are you?
Well, you might not, right? But then you're also the map that's stored in it, right, is probably 15 years out of date, right? And so all of the roads are probably missing or different or whatever. So it's unless you can download an updated map and put it into the memory, right, it's going to be kind of useless. So yeah.
Well, the other thing, I mean, even before we started seeing these things in cars built in. Of course, you had Google Maps, which has live traffic.
Yes.
It does smart routing. It does all the stuff that a sat nav can do, but better and quicker and for free. And you've already got your phone with you. So I think that has certainly led to the demise of the standalone sat nav. And you've got to look at the companies. I mean, I don't know what TomTom are up to this day, but Garmin now. I mean, they're making their money in watches and
right. They do the sort of mountaineering stuff, all that.
Yeah, and I'm sure they do specialist sat nav stuff. Boats and aeroplanes.
Oh yeah, boats. Right.
Yeah, I'm sure. Obviously, they're not obsolete in that world. But I think again, it's one of those things. If you walk down any high street in the land and tried to buy one, I think you'd be very hard pressed to walk into any shop and pick up a brand new sat nav.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Why would you?
Indeed, you got one in your phone. Yeah, I remember being in sometime in the early 90s, and my phone rang. Because I was obviously a techie, right? My phone rang while I was standing in Tesco, on the checkout, and people were looking at me like, "Oh my God, are you from the future or something?" Right?
Did you really think you were Billy Big Balls?
I was the knees bees, isn't it? But at the time I was thinking like, look, one day everyone's going to have a phone, and this won't be weird at all, right? And here we are.
I do actually have similar memories, and I seem to think there was some certainly in the early 90s. I worked, again, another confession, and arguably this one's worse than the fact I used to call myself Beef Box.
Hard to beat that.
I know, but I used to be an estate agent back in the early 90s.
Oh, good grief. Wow.
I know.
Ooh.
People are now... We say this every week. People are switching off in their droves. So the mobile phone, I got a mobile phone fairly early. No, I did not. I had a Vauxhall Astra 1.4 Merit. J-Reg, I think it was. Well,
fair enough. If you had a Porsche, then
No, it was. This was past the yuppie days. This was early 90s, so everything was being repossessed.
Repossessed,
dead on its arse. It was terrible time to be. There was no money in it by that point.
Right.
Just my luck. But I do remember having a mobile phone in the early 90s and actually feeling, hold on a minute, this is you were someone if you had a mobile phone. Now, everyone has got one. So we've gone completely off topic here. I can't even remember what we were talking about. Sat navs, yes. But again, it was that the thing of having this device. I do remember thinking this is just absolute wizardry that you can get in a car and this thing knows where you are, and not only that, it gives you directions, and not for fear of not sounding sexist. Much better than my wife.
Did you have the female voice speaking to you though?
Yes.
I remember
Hazel, I think her name was.
Oh, right.
Although maybe that was just the name I gave mine. I don't know.
I remember having
fixation.
A lot of arguments with the woman who was telling me where to go, take the next left. There is no next left. Make a U-turn when possible. No, fuck off. Yeah. So,
and this is why they're obsolete, because they were
the accuracy was like. Tell you what, if you went into a city, then the accuracy is suddenly absolutely screwed, right? And that's actually where you want it the most.
Exactly.
You don't know, weird city, you're driving around trying to find something, and the stupid thing is you're 300, 500 meters from where you actually are, and it's telling you, so not much use, but the phones use a lot of other things as well to triangulate, right? So cell tower numbers and radio signals and Wi-Fi and all of that stuff all combines to give you a quicker, more accurate location, right, than just the triangulation from the satellites. So
So, and of course, technology moves on and it leaves beyond a lot of no longer wanted TomToms.
I wonder what's happened to all those little boxes that would yell at you from your dashboard.
I do think that people do have a tendency to keep hold of stuff because they think maybe one day this will be worth some money. But these things are mass produced. I mean, they were revolutionary in as much as they, almost everyone had one at one point. So they were fairly ubiquitous, and then now they are obsolete. So I think that sort of fulfills the remit, which is why I hereby commit standalone sat-nav units to the retro list.
All right, so the last pick of the day is car phones.
Wow.
And a car phone. I mean, and we're on a similar subject, right? And before you carried around a phone in your pocket all the time, which, you know, everyone, as we said, everyone does, that wasn't a thing. And the original kind of mobile phones from early 80s, mid 80s, were massive bricks. I mean, you know, they're hilarious. You know, if you ever see what's that film with Tom Cruise yelling into a phone? It's
Jerry Maguire.
Something like that, right?
That
I think so. I can't remember now. But anyway, huge lumps of a thing, and really heavy. Like, you couldn't put that in. It's not going to fit in your pocket. And probably the battery life was minutes rather than hours, right? And signal was shitty, right? And then of course it has like not quite a CB whip, but a big, massive foot-long aerial on the top.
Something that would take someone's eye out comfortably.
Yeah. So I suppose you could swing it around and club someone with it if you needed to, right? But in that era of ridiculous phones, what you had instead was a car phone, right? So this
made much more sense when you think about it.
Yeah, because the battery life, it doesn't matter. It's getting power from the car, and you don't have to carry it because it's built into the car.
Proper aerial.
Yeah, aerial on the roof of the car. So probably a much better experience all around, right? And maybe integrated into the car. But I suppose the big con of this is that you have to be in your car to use it, right? I have vague memories of an era where, you know, somebody would have a car phone and then they'd have a mobile phone as well, and with two different numbers, and you'd have to know which one to ring. Well, I mean, if I'm in my car, it's this, and if it's...
Was this you?
No, I was much too young at that stage, but like,
okay.
You know, yuppie type people.
It does sound the kind of thing you'd do.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You're so obsessed with tech.
Yeah, like your business card with like 14 different phone numbers on it.
Yeah, and your pager.
Yeah, and pages as well. Yeah, brilliant. But yeah, so, and I think a lot of people have probably had this thought, right? There's still a shop in the UK and Ireland, I think, called Car Phone Warehouse. And every time I see that, I'm just wondering, who the fuck has a car phone? And when did they last have a car phone to sell? Like, I mean, it must be 20 years at least since they last actually installed a phone in someone's car.
Now you've said that, I do remember having a conversation with my son at least a decade ago, if not. And I think we were walking through a town, and he looked up and go, "Dad, what's a car phone?"
yeah, and there you go. That's why it's
a mobile phone in a car.
Yeah.
Well, it's not mobile then, really, is it? It's in a car, but the car's mobile.
Yeah, you go and sit in the car and have your conversation. But yeah, I mean, it's much better than the tech of the day. In all those things I said, right? You don't have to carry it around, but very limited, that you do have to kind of be in your car to use it. And so, like, where are you going to be? I mean, I suppose the only people who really needed these were like traveling salesmen, or truckers maybe. But then that's a truck phone, right? Not a
they would have
phone.
a CB.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, this is where the CBs came in. But a car phone was like a CB for, I don't know, briefcase wankers, people with money.
And it's probably like
yuppies.
50p a minute or more.
Oh,
and I think it even cost to receive a call, didn't it, back in those days?
I can say I only ever used a car phone once in my entire life. Very good friend of mine at the time. His dad ran a business, was quite wealthy. He went away for the weekend. We went to stay at this guy's house. Sean, his name was, and his dad left the keys for his BMW behind, and with strict instructions that Sean was not to go anywhere near it. Of course, we did. We went out for a spin, and this was in 1987, 88, and I remember he had a car phone, and I called my mum from this thing, and it was, "Mum, I'm calling you from the car." As we're driving along, and she did what mothers do. "I hope you're not speeding." blah blah blah. What time are you coming home for dinner? This sort of stuff. She was less than impressed, or I was certainly amazed by this thing.
Yeah.
And that was the one and only time I've ever used an actual car phone, because again, I think they're very much the remit of the wealthy.
Yeah.
Until we got to, when would you say, maybe the mid-ish 90s, where they become.
So it probably was, mid to late 90s, where
you would get those car kits that were sort of for Nokias and the like, and no matter what phone you bought, there would be a kit.
It was, so some kind of, you have to hook it all up. That's the thing. It's not just, it doesn't come from maybe some of the fancy models, right? It came from the manufacturer already with stuff in, but you had to probably go to a garage or somewhere where they'd wire it all up for you.
I bought a Passat in the early noughties. It was a 98 Passat, and it came with one of these phone kits, so you had a cradle. But you think about it, well, I mean, it was obviously there for a purpose, that this was probably a company car in its prior life, and so for the company gave the reps, I'm guessing they were reps, the particular model of phone. But of course, for everyone else, I mean, it's utterly useless. And you buy that unless you have that specific type of phone. Right. That's, I guess, where that era we're evolving from car phone to actual mobile phone.
Yeah, it wasn't a long
bloody
period.
Annoying.
Yeah. But yeah, absolutely. Like, who would even consider putting a phone that's just in your car? Like, you get in your car now and your phone connects to the thing, and there it is, car phone. But yeah, once you get out of that car, imagine not having the phone anymore. Just ridiculous.
But even more puzzling is at no point of the directors of Car Phone Warehouse gone, do you know what? Half the population have no clue what our company name is. Do you think we should perhaps rebrand?
Yeah. Well, yeah. They ought to, really. I mean, it does make. Oh, I wonder what the reason is for that. Maybe there's some kind of, I don't know, historic brand. But yeah, it's just gonna. One day somebody's gonna realise this is ridiculous. And
yeah, you would have thought that point would have already been reached. I mean, they are, I think, one of the only sort of main mobile phone retailers on the high street these days. So aren't they part of Currys and all that lot now? I think. PC World, but that's another one, isn't it? PC World. I mean, PCs. Who's buying PCs these days apart from me?
Well, a lot of people, because the company I work for sell millions of them every year.
But are they selling PCs or laptops?
Oh well, desktops is still a thing, right? Desktops.
I guess in work environments, yeah. But I mean, the home computer market.
Yeah, most people want laptops, but I mean, to be pedantic, right? Personal computer, PC, that could be anything from your Palm PDA up to your high-powered Alienware.
I go back to my previous comment about men our age being pedants.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, so a lot of the stuff we sell is enterprise servers and things like that as well, right? That's my focus. But yeah, okay. I mean, PC World, Dixon's, but Dixon's is gone.
Car Phone Warehouse. Dixon's is gone.
Wow. But Currys is still there, though, isn't it?
Currys is still going, and it's all amalgamating now. So you can walk into a branch of Currys, and they're all on retail parks now. You don't get any of that.
Yeah.
My first job, work experience, was in a branch of Currys, and it was on a high street. It was a proper shop. They're all gone, and you can now go in. You've got a bit of Car Phone Warehouse. You've got a bit of PC World, and whatever else they're going to amalgamate. Socks R Us or something.
I mean, the high streets are kind of obsolete as well to a certain extent, right? I mean, you just get everything on Amazon. I live far, far away from anywhere that has a high street, right? So I don't tend to go to shops. I just buy stuff online, and then the postman brings it to me.
My local town is synonymous with having zero, and I mean zero, men's clothes shops. So, I mean, just bizarre. And it's been like that for 7 or 8 years now. So
men don't wear clothes. That's or buy them, right? just have them.
I
from
think
your youth
we're all grateful that men do wear clothes.
Yeah,
but no more so than women.
You don't actually. How I have no idea how to buy clothes. Just they just.
I'm going to clip that up and use that in a meme.
Anyway, car phones.
Yes, car phones, 100%. I mean, they were revolutionary, albeit for a brief period, but they are now completely and utterly obsolete. And come on, car phone warehouse, get your shit together. Changed it, rebrand.
Just
it's time to move on.
Just
stop
remove
confusing
the first 3 letters. It's simple, right?
Yeah, stop confusing millennials and Gen Zs.
Yeah, because they'll be offended.
Weirdly outdated brand name. So
I'm offended by your insinuation that I should have a car.
Yes, or a phone, particularly
or
together.
A whole house.
So yes, I guess I can safely say that I hereby commit car phones to... No, why am I doing this? This is your turn.
I was going to say, I'll have to...
I was so incensed. Or disorganised, or confused, or all of the above.
Anyway,
right,
so...
Get on, Eccles.
I hereby commit car phones to the retro list.
Well, there we go. That's episode 2 in the can, and amazingly, we've managed to make it 10 minutes shorter than the last one.
Well, actually, so do you know what? I forgot to say something, right? So, and it's come up a couple of times, so I want to get it in there, right? But so remembering back to your telephone that had a lock on it, right?
Yes.
So I was thinking about this. And this is either going to blow your mind, or you maybe already know, right? But if it blows your mind, you're going to want to pull out that Commodore 64, right, and go back to tell your younger self, you don't need to dial the rotary dial thing to make a phone call on a rotary dial phone, right? So if you Right, here we go. So, the dial is locked, so you can't make calls, right? But that's not how the phone call was initiated. Well, it was, right? But if you lift up the handset, and under the handset, there's, like on the cradle, there's these 2 buttons that pop up, right? And then you get the dial tone, right? Now, so how the phone system of that era determined that you wanted to make a call, or, determined that the number that you want to dial, right, is by pulses, right? And that's what the rotary was. If you moved it all the way around to the 9 or the 0, and when you let it go, it would go ding, 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 ding. So those pulses is it making and disconnecting that circuit, and then the equipment on the other side is receiving that and understand and interpreting that as a number, right? So if you dial a 4, it would go ding, 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 and that would be 4 signals, and that's a 4, right? So hooks you up with a 4. So and this is the revolution, right? That phone is locked, but if you just pick up the thing, you can just tap those buttons with a regular rhythm, right? It might be a bit tricky, right? But if you
like
wanted
Morse code of sorts,
kind of, yeah. So if you wanted to dial, Victor Meldrew 4219, right? You would lift up the thing, get the dial tone, and then you would just go tap 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 tap. And then 9 taps at the end, right? So
that's it.
That's it, and that will be exactly the same as if you dialed the rotary thing. I
can't believe it. This sounds like an urban myth.
No, it's true. I've done it, right? Not that because my phone was locked, but because I'm a techie, a nerd, right? And
a tight ass.
Yeah. So you could, it doesn't bypass, having to pay for the call, but that's the thing, right? But putting that...
Would it work on public phones, or is that why they were made of metal?
It would, right? Because you still have to pay for it, right? Though.
No, but if you're in a payphone,
and the dial was broken or something.
Just as an aside, how the hell did we not talk about payphones as being revolutionary and now obsolete?
Yeah, the iconic red phone boxes and
and then there were the rabbits. Do you remember rabbits? They were like, it was a brief. Okay, we need to be very careful here. So the rabbit, it was like it was somewhere between a normal phone and a mobile. So you could carry this rabbit phone, but you had to make a call at a rabbit like way station, like a phone box. Yeah. And they must have invested millions and millions of pounds on putting up these sort of rabbit call centres. And obviously it flopped, but yeah, it was a thing for a while. I'm just talking about this off the cuff, so I might need to look into it in a bit more detail. But if anyone can shed any light on the rabbit story, we talk about communications company rather than
anything else, right? Yeah.
Anything else. Do send us an email. But sorry, back to your. Yes. I can only call it a revelation.
Yeah, so you're going to want to go back in time and tell your younger self you can actually call your friends, right? You just need to know the number, and maybe you might get a few wrong numbers at first, right? But it's simple. You just go tap 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 tap, and that's a 4.
There is one flaw.
Yes.
One flaw. What do you do when the bill comes in?
Well, then you're fucked, right? Yeah, then you're fucked. Like, what? Who's making all these calls? Well,
so it's not the perfect. I can absolutely see. I mean, I did not know that, and that has blown my mind. But I was thinking, God, if only I could have told myself that when I was 15. But I'd have still had to face the wrath.
Yeah. If you're
but actually, what would have been worse is the old man would have looked at it and gone, "How the hell did that happen?" And he would have called up BT. And had a very angry conversation.
Yelled at them, my phone is locked, how can it be making calls? Well...
And my dad is the kind of guy, there was 4 of us brothers, if he couldn't pin a particular crime on one of us, we would all get a slippery.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I know. Okay. Kids today don't know they're born.
Absolutely.
They used to have a saying that you need a good hiding. That was his thing. But anyway, that's a tale for a different episode.
Absolutely. But yeah, so there you go. Yeah, you wouldn't want to make a habit of it, but to get around that lock, it's possible. Phone freaking.
I'm genuinely staggered by that, and I think there couldn't be a bigger, better. I'm sure there could be bigger and better revelations, but to end the episode. But it's certainly up there. So I think are we all good to wrap? Anything else you want to say?
No, I think we're good.
Excellent.
So we'll just go with the if you want to get in touch. Go to retrolist.com. That's our website that Keith has put together. It's very nice. Go and have a look. Or you can search for Retrolists, all one word, on Facebook or Twitter. And do get in touch. Retrolist.com, right? So do you remember, just as another thing that we're going to make obsolete, right? Do you remember when people would say out loud, http://www. At the beginning, like, you don't need to say any of that, right? But people would say it and say, I suppose it was to sort of...
People still say www, and it boils my piss. I mean, it's up there where people say, how are you? I'm fine. Yeah. Just visit our website, www.
You don't need that 3 dubs. So yeah, certainly that. I do remember though people actually saying http:// like, shut the fuck up, I know what a URL is. Anyway, but yeah, so Retrolists, all one word, on Facebook or Twitter, and do get in touch. And don't forget.
Could you just give us that? What was it again? www.
That's the W on your keyboard. Next to the Q and the E.
We're losing them.
And don't forget to rate the show on your podcast player of choice and subscribe, right? I think a lot of people probably listen to the first episode via the fuck's it called? The
website.
Yeah, the thing
the actual
on the website.
Embedded player on the website. But we are now available on all major platforms.
Yes.
Yeah, I think all major platforms. Certainly Spotify, Apple, Google. We had a few teething problems with them, but all talk radio.
Don't know, really?
I've just made that up. No, Talk Radio. That's a radio station. I'm sure there's an app, something like that. Anyway, all the major platforms we're available for you to listen to. Yeah, and of course, subscribe. If you're old school, you can send us an email. chat@retrolists.com. That's chat@retrolists.com if you fancy sending an email. And if you're even older school and you want to send us a letter, well, tough.
That's not going to work, is it?
No, it's not.
That's obsolete.
That is as obsolete as it gets, really. And on that bombshell, I think all it remains for us to say thank you very much if you've reached this point of the podcast. We look very much forward to seeing you, hopefully, at the next one.
And the next one, yeah, bye. Talk to you next on the next pod.
Cheerio now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.